denomination that I left that is obsessed with white people. Okay, they're involved in human trafficking, and they continue to keep trying to. The Holy Spirit has told me. I guess they're praying for me to turn white. Why? I have no clue. Because they don't have nothing better to do with their time than mess around with women that aren't bothering them. Because God forbid you should be a black woman and not want to fuck white men and not want to be white. Okay? Anyway, now that I've got that off my chest, this is my update. So many of you may have seen, I did get a chance to post it on the Adams Rib Facebook page, but Bone Thugs and Harmony is coming to Columbus next week. So tonight, I have two announcements. Number one, Bone Thugs and Harmony is coming to town next Friday at the Newport Music Hall. I am going to be going, and I am going to have a good time. I will be going live from there. I will be broadcasting live from the concert. I will be doing a dedication tonight to them. So I will be doing a lot. So Eclectic Music Geek will be going live tonight on Station Head to dedicate as a dedication to Bone Thugs and Harmony. Many of you made it. Well, what is so special about Bone Thugs? Bone Thugs is special because Bone Thugs is from Cleveland. Okay, and when I go into their autobiographical information, you'll kind of understand why they are so important. They have been around now for probably they have been around since the 90s. And so when I was doing my one thing on Midwest hip hop, when I talked about the different regions of hip hop artists, I talked about Eminem and different ones that were from. I turned down the wrong road. Different. I talked about East Coast. I talked about West Coast. I talked about Dirty South, and then I talked about Midwest. So, Bone Thugs hails from the Midwest. They're from Cleveland, Ohio. Um, it, One of their most famous songs is the song Crossroads. But they had First of the Month. They had Ruggish, but Ruggish Thuggish Bone. They were, they to me came at a time where hip hop transcended from being, rock the party, rock the bells, East Coast. Like I said, the East Coast is the birthplace of hip hop. And so what's interesting is, they're from, some of you have heard of Machine Gun Kelly, who's also from Cleveland. So they were before him. So the integralness of them being from Cleveland, because Cleveland is considered to be the birthplace of rock and roll. That's why the Rock and Roll Museum is in Cleveland. That's why the induction is in Cleveland when they induct people into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They do it in Cleveland because Cleveland is the birthplace place of rock and roll. And I did a show on that was before they was allowing us to record our broadcast on Station Head. So now that they're allowing us to record them, you can hear the different ones that I've done. So I talked about Midwest hip hop before, and they were named. They're part of that movement. So we're honored and privileged to have Bone Thugs come to Columbus. We want to show them some love. I'm going to do a show tonight, a dedication to them and all the hits that they've had, and I'm going to play some of their separate solo stuff that they've done in the meantime as well. And so we also have sad news. This week, Uncle Charlie's brother, Ronnie Wilson. Gap, one of the founding members of the R&B group, the Gap Band, passed away. So I will be doing the first part of tonight's broadcast is going to be dedicated. So I guess you would say Uncle Ronnie. um, I was privileged to get to see Uncle Charlie when he came to Columbus with Johnny Gill and Fantasia, and it was an awesome show. He, of course, headlined. You can't have Uncle Charlie and he not headline. So he headlined, which means he was the last act. Um, Johnny Gill opened, which I was like, in heaven. I've always, you know, he's one of my musical crushes from back then when I was a teenager, whatever. Him and Stacey Gladys saw together were like, were like one of my favorite duos. They were kind of musical soulmates. So they were one of my faves to listen to together. Perfect combination. Where do we go from here? They were both very soulful and carried that soulful spiritual impact in their music. So I am gonna do my so unfortunately Bone Thugs is gonna have to share their night with the legend, which I'm sure they won't mind. We're all in around the same age group, so we grew up listening to the Gap Band. The Gap Band was my soundtrack for, I would say, middle school and high school, and they were awesome. So I also will talk about, you heard me talk about Tommy DeBarge. I think it was a couple weeks ago because it's past that Friday. I took a break. So tonight I will be talking about, give a little bit of history on the Gap Band themselves, and if I can dig up any history on Ronnie Ronnie Wilson, because of course Uncle Charlie was the one that went forward and became, an awesome solo act. So tonight I will be talking about it. This week there's been one question pondering my mind as a woman, as a black woman. Okay, I often wonder anymore when men approach women and claim that they want something with a woman, regardless of what that is, do they ever think about whether or not their behavior is going to help enhance that woman's life? Okay? Do they ever think about, because I'm gonna be honest with you, my ministry, I feel, well, there's all, first, number one, to lead people to Christ. That's the number one thing. But also to deal with women who have past relationship trauma. Um, I'm always, when I hear people, I listen to diverse viewpoints because I'm a person, I'm kind of relatively open minded and like to hear and like to listen to what people have to say about different topics. So they're called, I guess, women that divest. I'm not a part of that movement. I have no interest in being part of that movement. So yeah, don't want nothing to do with it. Ain't got no hollow for it. I know too. I'm the type of person, and if you're listening to me and you're a part of my family of origin, you know that we were not really raised. We were raised to see color. We were raised to acknowledge racism. We were not, however, we were more about judging people according to their character. So when I hear a lot of black people who are constantly pontificating about the negatives in the black community, it's like, yeah, I guess I can see where you're coming from, but it's kind of one sided because white men have those same problems. I don't care what man you date, you are not going to get around having to look at that man's character before inviting him into your life. So when the divestors say they're doing better, I'm like, well, because you finally decided to grow some standards. and evaluate men according to those standards. And your chess piece happen to fall on whatever color your husband is. Okay? And I have a real problem with black people who worship whiteness and act like they're getting a better deal because the person is white. I don't think of white people as an upgrade. And maybe because I spent a little too much time in customer service, having to deal with white people from that standpoint, having to deal with white people's racism, having to deal with microaggression. I'm not spending the rest of my life, I do not wish to spend the rest of my life having to navigate microaggressions in my private life. That's just not where I want to be. And I will say out loud, I do not believe that the current pressure for black women to swirl or get into interracial dating is coming from God. When God does things, He does them in decency and order. And if anybody is trying to get you to fornicate, they're not doing things in decency and order. Yeah, I'm kind of looking because I see a sheriff's deputy, and right now at this time, nothing reminds you of how black you are until law enforcement gets behind your car and seems like they're trailing you. I choose to stay black because the problem is not with me being black. So this week, when I can, I'm going to try and to do some podcasts and talk about some of the stuff that's been on my mind. The respectability, how respectability politics kills black women series. I'm keeping. I'm also keeping the whole hoifying series about behavior that hoifies women. And so you know that when I talk about hoifying, I'm talking about using any little practice of freedom at all that a woman exercises in and using it as an excuse to call him a hoe. And then it goes from there. Like it never stops with just that. Then it becomes an excuse to full court press you. Now I'm gonna say what I've said before. Full court presses are rape. If a man is coercing you into having sex with you, he is a rapist. You are not a whore. He is a rapist. And I don't care what your sexual past is. I don't care what mess he can dig up on you. No means no. Now I can remember during my Yes All Women days when I was doing a lot of posting for Yes All Women. There was this tape that went around to show how prevalent street harassment is, and the woman in it, she looked. I don't know. I guess I'll say she was white, but she didn't look like she was altogether completely white. And she was dressed in such a manner as to not draw attention to herself. And she purposely was walking through the street looking straight ahead and not talking to anybody. Now, as a woman, have you ever tried that? People are a mess, especially man people. You can never just go through life and mind your own business if they think you look like anything, because they will find a reason to pester you. And it doesn't matter what color they are. They don't even got to know your first name before pestering you. Okay? So she was walking through the streets, and unfortunately, if you look at the tape, many of the men who were accosting her were of the black and brown persuasion. Well, they found out, which I wasn't looking at the color, I was looking at the behavior. And one guy followed her for 5 minutes. What the hell do you have to say about that? You got to follow somebody who won't respond back for 5 minutes. Black women, stop protecting that mess. Okay? And when I looked at it, I was like, I can already hear the mammies coming. Yeah, I call you mammies because you did exact, especially when it came out. So it came out that when they were doing the editing, that they edited the white guys out. Womp womp. Okay, I'm like, do people like when white people do stuff? Like, do you ever ask? Do any of you have black friends? First of all, because it's quite possible to be white in this country and not have any black friends. Unfortunately, okay. Less likely now than in ages past, but it's still possible. So they edited most of the white guys out. I'm like, I spot a snake already. So my first thought was, when you did that, you messed up your credibility with black women because I'm already gonna hear it now. And sure enough, it came out. The black women, oh, see, this is the anti-black man, blah 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 blah. And so I finally said with one black woman, isn't street harassment bad no matter what color the guy is? Because I I personally don't want any man following me for 5 minutes if I'm not talking to you. I'm ignoring you virtually, and you're still following me and still talking. Now, doesn't that kind of say a little okay to follow somebody for 5 minutes and still keep talking? But you don't understand. See, it's a plot, it's a plan, it's this, that, and the other, and I'm like, girl, when do you start holding your own men responsible for their behavior? Women of all colors, okay? Because I wasn't too happy to hear that they edited out the white guys either, especially knowing what I know about white guys, and especially knowing what I know about white guys when it comes to women of color. Okay.